Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Governor Eric Holcomb and Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Marian University and our distinguished guests. I'll introduce a little more in a minute. At Marian University, we have a tradition when we start an event, a meeting, to have a little prayer of reflection. So that's how we're going to start today with our esteemed guest here present. And I'll offer that reflection. Creator God, giver of all perfect gifts, as we work to bring our next generation of leaders to experience the education they need to live productive lives and serve you in advancing the common good. Please grant our minds the vision, our hearts the generosity, compassion, and courage, and our hands the skill that we will need to serve your holy will this day and this evening and throughout this academic year. Amen. With that prayer and reflection, I have a distinct pleasure to introduce a good friend to Marian University and all of education in the state of Indiana, our Honorable Governor, esteemed Governor, Eric Holcomb. Welcome, Governor.
Well, it's good to be here. Thank you, President Elsener, for hosting the panel. I feel like I'm in the Hall of Champions. Basketball, football, soccer, volleyball, the list goes on and on and on. It's good to meet you all. But thanks for doing this. Thanks for your leadership, Marian. Obviously, you've received a lot of national recognition. Earned it, or deserved. Not just athletically, this is academically, most importantly. And I think it's just, it makes us proud when you do receive that recognition because of your innovative approach, what it is that you bring to the forefront, especially connecting students to their passion. And as anybody sitting up here will attest to, when you connect somebody with their passion, you know where take you. And so that's what's happening here. And you have honed in, it sounds a little self-serving Greek, you have really also honed in on what something means, what really matters. The educators colleagues. So the topic couldn't be more important. The time to talk about this and the needs of the nations that are before us. So thank you. And it's great to see students. You are obviously living through unprecedented times. But the good news is you're here at Marian, which by every indicator and definition, it means the best is yet to come. So we will pass, and we will get through this together. And so I'm excited to see where life takes you all. Also, great to be joined by Birx, Secretary DeVos. Very, this is, you've been here many times, so welcome back. Thank you, Dr. Birx. Very fortunate to be here today. The topics of the day. And then it's always a real treat to be joined by our Vice President, my friend, our friend. Go back years, but I think what makes this time different is just your extraordinary leadership during this unprecedented time. I cannot think of, maybe you can, but I can't think of in my tenure where an administration has been more closely aligned, accessible, and helpful in terms of collaboration, in terms of resources, certainly for that funding places that we'll talk about later today, but just an hand-in-glove approach, and this effort that you're leading, it's making a difference in the state of Washington. So we have 67 million Hoosiers. Your fellow Hoosiers. Welcome back home again. Ladies and gentlemen, Vice President of the United States of America.
Well, thank you, Governor. Thank you for those kind words, and thank you for your leadership. We wanted to be here in Indiana to make it very clear to people all across this state. Thanks to the extraordinary commitment of the healthcare workers, the cooperation of people all across Indiana, and your strong leadership, that we are getting there. And that I pledge to you, Governor, while Indiana's overall positivity rate remains low, below 10%, there are areas of the state where we see rising cases. And as I said to you earlier today, I'm sure you will hear, we're going to stay with you every step of the way to make sure the state of Indiana has the resources, the supplies for the medical workers, the testing resources, the medicines and therapeutics, and all the support that's needed as you continue to move the state forward, as you meet the needs of those that are impacted by the coronavirus, and as you continue to open up Indiana again. And as we'll talk about today, as you continue to make plans to open up Indiana schools. I'd like to invite everyone to join me in thanking Governor Erin Holcomb for his strong leadership every step of the way. I also want to thank President Dan Elsener for welcoming us to Marian University. He is my friend of many years, and your tenure here at Marian University has been transformational. And it's exciting to be on this campus, even in a challenging time. And we thank you for your innovative leadership here and your personal commitment to have students back on campus and to begin to return education to this campus. And I don't think he got a round of applause, so join me in thanking President Deborah. I'm also pleased to have brought several members of our task force with us today. Dr. Deborah Birx has been my right arm since the President first asked me to lead the White House Coronavirus Task Force. And she has been traveling with us as we've been visiting states, particularly in the Sun Belt, that have been impacted by rising cases. And I'm pleased to have her along today. Governor, I wish you would meet members of your team later today to make sure that Indiana has all the resources they need. She'll be speaking in just a moment or two. Also, I want to thank the Secretary of Education, Betsy, DeVos, who knows the state of Indiana well and has brought such innovative leadership. As Congress now considers additional legislation to support efforts in this state and around the country to open up our schools again, I want to thank the Secretary, not only for being here, but for the leadership that you are providing for America's kids and America's higher education. So we're pleased to be here. The three of us are here, Governor, to say to you and the people of Indiana, we're with you, and we're going to stay with you every step of the way until we reach that day when we put the coronavirus fully in the past. Let me begin my short comments by simply saying that while Indiana has made steady progress in opening up again, and the positivity rate of cases in this state remains below 10%, we still recognize the losses to families in this state. And let me just express my deepest sympathies to the more than 2,600 Hoosier families that have lost loved ones. You are our hearts and in our prayers. And to the more than 60,000 Hoosiers who have tested positive, I just pledge to you that we're going to continue to make sure that Indiana has the resources and the equipment to render care, the level of care that any one of us would want a family member to have. To that end, Governor, as you know, I've been very pleased to see literally millions of masks and gloves and coveralls and face shields delivered to the state of Indiana. And in addition to that, we'll also continue to work closely with you to make sure that medicines like remdesivir are available to people impacted by the coronavirus. And there'll be another shipment coming to Indiana, I'm told, this coming weekend. And Governor, we're grateful for the way you and the hospital systems here in Indiana have kept us informed about where the needs are. And at this point, across the state of Indiana, even across states in the Sun Belt, have been impacted by rising cases. I'm pleased to report that the PPE supplies, the equipment, all remain very strong. Hospital capacity remains very strong, but we're absolutely committed to work around the clock to ensure that that remains the case here in Indiana and all across the country. I'm also pleased and I want to express appreciation to the nearly 800 Indiana National Guard that you stood up all along the way and assure you that we'll continue to work to make sure the federal support is there for Indiana and all of our states under Title 32 to support the incredible work. And let me say, I'm partial to the Indiana National Guard. I know their capability and their quality, but to all the men and women of the National Guard in the state, we thank you for your service during this challenging time. Governor, I also want to thank you for the fact that you've helped facilitate businesses across the state access relief through the Paycheck Protection Program. And I'm informed as of this morning, nearly 80,000 loans have been issued to Hoosier businesses so they can keep people on the payroll during this challenging time. And that's a testament to your leadership. I know the state of Indiana is in stage 4.5 of reopening. And the people of Indiana's cooperation and their adherence to state and local guidance has made it possible for this state to be getting back on track, as you say, Governor. 352,000 jobs added in May and June, and the Indy 500 is just around the corner. And so things are getting better in this state, and we're just determined to keep Indiana on that same trajectory. I also want to say, as we talk about supplies, how grateful we are to General Motors and Plant and Kokomo and all the hardworking Hoosiers who have, at this point in time, produced more than 17,000 ventilators. It's amazing to think that when Dr. Birx, when we started this effort, the White House Coronavirus Task Force, we had, I believe, less than 15,000 ventilators in the Strategic National Stockpile. But because of public-private partnerships that President Trump initiated with companies like General Motors and GE and Ford, we literally had nearly 70,000 ventilators in the Strategic National Stockpile today. And I know the state of Indiana has strong reserves of that life-saving equipment on hand. But I do want to give thanks again to all the great Hoosiers at GM and Kokomo for the great work that you've done creating that life-saving equipment. So we're opening up Indiana again. The economy is coming back. But Governor, we want the people of Indiana to know that we fully support the decisions that you and your administration have made to keep Indiana open up. We encourage people all across the state to remember that we all have a role to play. Practicing personal hygiene, washing your hands, wearing a mask wherever state or local health officials indicate that it's appropriate, or when social distancing is not possible. It's how we keep Indiana opening up. And it's how we open up Indiana schools. So, Governor, I want everyone in the state to know the President and I and our entire team fully support your leadership and the steps that you've taken in Indiana to keep the state on the right track. Today, we're here to talk about opening up our schools. And the truth is, to open up America again, we've got to open up America's schools. And Governor, I want to thank you for your strong leadership on K-12 education, the guidance that the state of Indiana has issued, that your schools can open this fall. I'm pleased to report to you that the CDC issued additional recommendations last night about both the importance of getting kids back into school and also guidance for parents and teachers and the proper recommendations about testing. But I think, Governor, you know, and people of Indiana, I believe, broadly know that opening up up our schools again is the best thing for our kids. It's also the best thing for working families, and it's the best thing for moving the state and our country forward. Opening up our schools also means opening up our universities. And to that end, I want to thank President Elsener and Marian for your plan to reopen this great campus. I know the fall semester is going to begin a week early. On August 17th, the on-campus portion of the semester will end early on November the 24th, and you've put proper measures into place to put the health of your students first, the health of your faculty first, and kept in mind the community in which Marian University resides. It's no real surprise that we've seen similar and creative innovation at universities around the state of Indiana. Purdue University has made plans to reopen. It's in the process. Ivie Bloomington has developed a plan for a mixture of in-person and online classes through November. And we've been working with both of those schools as well as Notre Dame to provide the resources, including the testing supplies, that will make it possible for our universities to reopen. So those great schools and Ball State University, we want to thank all the educators in the state who are working hard to get our young people back on campus. Because we really do know, and Dr. Birx will probably reflect on this in a moment, that first and foremost, it's important to remember that the risk of the coronavirus to healthy children is very low. It's also important to remember that there are real costs far beyond academics to our kids if they're not in school. As the President reflected just from the podium at the White House yesterday, we have confirmed of late the fact that students fall behind dramatically in education. One study estimates that due to school closures last spring, the average student is going to begin this year roughly 35% behind in reading compared to a typical year, and 50% behind in math. In fact, the National Education Association just recently stated that online learning is no substitute for in-person learning. And when you factor the fact that our kids could fall behind academically, it's also important to remember that there are real risks to our children's well-being. Many children across the country and families where children have either learning disabilities or deal with emotional issues, they receive the counseling at the schools and really nowhere else. Special needs children. I met with a mother of a wonderful Down's child just a few days ago in a similar forum, and she spoke to me about the hardship on that child of being away from their friends, away from their counselor, away from the opportunities that they have at school. And finally, there are tens of millions of American children who rely on school nutrition programs, the lunch and breakfast programs that are available through the federal government. And so for their personal well-being, for their counseling, for children facing either learning challenges or physical challenges, Governor, I think you know it's the best thing for our kids is to get them back to school and get them back to school this fall. It's one of the reasons our administration has been working to make that possible. Not only have we issued guidance all the way through last night, since early in the month of March, CDC has issued detailed guidance about how we can safely reopen our schools. But Governor, my pledge to you is we're going to continue to work to make resources available, because we know there are additional costs associated with putting into practice the kind of strategies that will allow us to safely reopen our schools on campuses like this one or in K-12 education. I'm pleased to report that up to this point we've already secured, if memory serves, roughly $30 billion in funding for states' Department of Education, half of which is available for higher education, half for K-12 education. But as President Trump announced yesterday, we've actually requested to Congress in this new legislation that's being debated as we speak for another $105 billion to be made available to states for K-12 education and for higher education. We understand that there are unique costs in implementing the safety measures wears protective equipment as appropriate, or creating an environment of social distancing that's necessary. Our pledge to you, Governor, is we're going to work with leaders in Congress in both political parties to make sure that the state of Indiana and every state has the resources to safely reopen. Our bottom line on our guidance and our resources is we don't want finances or any recommendations to be a barrier to safely reopening schools. We truly do believe it's in the best interest of our kids, it's the best interest of working families, it's the best interest of our country to open up our schools again and open them up this fall. In fact, it was Dr. Robert Redfield of the CDC who said, we don't want CDC's guidance to be a barrier to schools opening. We want CDC's guidance to create the means and the recommendation where states and local communities can make their decision about how to best and safely and responsibly reopen our schools. With that, I'm happy to turn it over to the Secretary of Education, but let me just say to all the Hoosiers that are gathered here, it was great to be back home again. My wife Carrie accompanied me today, and it's hard not to smile when you land in Indianapolis. We appreciate the warm welcome and the time people are spending today. We're proud of the people of Indiana, the way that the state has responded throughout this pandemic. And my pledge to you is we're going to continue working with your governor, working with health officials, working with education officials to make sure the state has everything that you need to meet the moment, provide health care to those that are struggling, but also open up the state and open up our schools again. But let me respectfully remind my fellow Hoosiers that we all do have a role to play. So keep heeding the guidance of state and local authorities. Wash your hands, practice personal hygiene, wear a mask whenever state and local officials determine it's appropriate, or in any situation where you can't social distance. The truth is, wearing a mask is how we stay open. Wearing a mask is how we open up our schools. And I just want to urge every Hoosier to heed that direction from your governor and from all of us. Do your part, play your part, and we'll keep opening up Indiana and keep opening up America again. I know that with your continued support and cooperation, with the strong leadership you have here and your governor and his administration, with great and innovative education leadership that we have around the state, like here at Marian University, and with God's help, we will slow the spread. We will flatten the curve, we will save lives, and we will keep Indiana on track to open up again and to open up our schools again. So thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Secretary.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vice President. It's really a pleasure to be here with you in your home state. And Governor Holcomb, thank you also for welcoming me here today. It's always a joy to be in Indiana. President Elsener, it's a joy to be back here on Marian University's campus, and thank you so much for hosting us. Governor Holcomb, I want to begin by applauding you and your team here in Indiana for the hard work that you've done on reopening plans and encouraging all schools to reopen again this fall. You called on schools to be very mindful of what that decision means holistically for the family. And you're so right. As the Vice President has already noted, there are so many measures that we need to be considering when looking at the importance of children getting back into school and into a classroom and with their friends and peers and with their teachers. And President Trump and Vice President Pence and I continue to point out that school leaders have to consider the health of the whole child as they make reopening decisions. Every student here in Indiana and across America must continue learning. So it's really not a matter of if schools reopen, it's a matter of how they reopen safely. And how they reopen is best guided by local education leaders in concert with parents who know their students, their teachers, and the health situation in their specific area the best. Education is really perhaps the most local issue there is. But I want to assure you that doesn't mean communities are on their own right now. As we've done since the very beginning of this outbreak, we will continue to extend the needed flexibility and freedom to reopen safely and ensure that learning can continue. And as the Vice President has mentioned, the CDC has released additional considerations that I think will be very helpful, again, as school leaders and parents plan for students getting back to school. I'm confident that school leaders here in Indiana can pivot and do what it takes to keep everyone safe and to do what's right for all students. I've had the opportunity to see the creativity here in Indiana firsthand in past visits. I think about my visit to Purdue Polytechnic Institute last year, where I saw what happens when employers and educators partner closely in doing what's right for their students, and when students are given agency to take charge of their own learning. And I think about Mitch Daniels and his leadership at Purdue University, looking at its 19th century land-grant mission through a 21st century lens. Purdue opening satellite campuses and purchasing the online school Kaplan to make a high-quality education, quality higher education available to so many students who wouldn't have previously had the opportunity to attend. And folks right here at Marian who are rethinking what a teaching college looks like, preparing highly capable teachers for an education landscape that hasn't even perhaps yet been imagined. And kudos to you and President Elsener and your leadership of that effort here. Ultimately, all of education needs to rise and meet the needs of each and every student. Students and their families shouldn't have to conform to a one-size-fits-all approach or system. American higher education knows how to get that done. From the start of this pandemic, we gave colleges and universities vast regulatory flexibility so learning could pivot and go online right away, and it did. And I think this helped play a big role in slowing the spread. And we worked on modernizing and improving distance learning policies long before the outbreak of coronavirus. And I think particularly at the higher ed level, we're going to continue to see innovation and embracing of the areas around distance learning. For more than 3 decades, I've talked about the need for everyone to truly rethink all of education and to expand education options for all students. It's a passion that the President and the Vice President share. And this moment really does demand it. Students need it, parents, families need it, and teachers really need it. You know, kids aren't meant to be alone. They're social. They need to be together with other students. And parents and their children can't be held captive to others' fears or agendas. We're working with Congress right now to ensure that students, especially the most vulnerable, have the options and the resources and the freedom needed to keep learning this fall at the places and in the ways that make the most sense for each of them. This week, Senator Tim Scott took a bold step toward answering that call. Senator Scott grew up in a single-parent household in a forgotten community. He knows that students like him need access to more education opportunities. Senator Scott's School Choice Now Act must be a part of any relief package to help all students return safely to school in the fall. Because education funding really should ultimately be about the student and follow the student, no matter what the school setting or the education setting is. And certainly if a student's assigned school doesn't meet families' needs in reopening, families should have the option to take that funding set aside for their child's education and find an alternative that will educate their child full-time. All members of Congress have the opportunity right now to expand and offer all education options at all schools to every single child in America. So let's work together. We can find a silver lining to these times by continuing to keep students at the center of all decisions around education and continuing to think creatively about how we can meet all of their needs.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. It's a privilege to be here with Secretary DeVos, Governor Holcomb. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for the fabulous mask that I will proudly wear until I arrive at my next state. Thank you to President Elsener. It's a privilege to be here on the multiple components of this university and see how you value not only education, academic leadership, but also athletic leadership and student leadership. And that's what's important with the experience that you have in universities. I was a field hockey player, not the best, but really aggressive. And I was privileged to play varsity hockey at my small college called Coach College in New York. And although I was a chemistry and math major, it was that experience of being on a team. The feeling of leadership from the coach and understanding that as a player, I owed my abilities to that team and the success of that team was on all of our shoulders. And I think that experience is sort of part and parcel of this experience. And I think really calling on Americans to bring that same teamwork, to really bring that sense of wearing a mask, not going to a bar, not creating indoor social gathering experiences, so that all of the states, like Indiana, can return their students and their teachers back to school and really ensure that our multi-generational households are protected. We worry every day about our elderly, about those that have pre-existing conditions, and I think what the CDC guidelines have laid out for us is a pathway forward that recognizes the importance of our children and our older adolescents and our young adults into universities, but also recognizes the safety of teachers, the safety of parents, and the safety of grandparents. And it's that call to action to bring all of us together as an American community. It's not asking a lot of people to wear a mask. It really isn't. It's not asking a lot for people to not go to bars for a few months and really drive down these infection rates across the United States. We have it in our hands, and we have it in our hands to be part of that team that calls to action to bring this epidemic to a halt. So it's a privilege to be here. Thank you for being here at a university and seeing your locker rooms, although I think the women's locker rooms need to be a little bit bigger. Just saying.
Dr. Birx, you're now on our fundraising list. So we can get that expanded next year, and I'll be glad to send you a bill for athletic director. I'm going to take a few minutes to introduce my colleagues and the crown jewel of Marian University, of course, are students. We have future Dr. Birx in the house. I mentioned the meeting. So I'll just start with here. Mr. Downing, Steve Downing is our athletic director, and he's going to have a few comments and take questions about our student athletes when he get back. He wants to get back because he really guides, our coaches guide the academics, they guide in character development, and they guide in leadership development. So we'll talk about that. Dr. Turner is our newly appointed dean of the Klipsch Educators College. It's a national effort. We recruit a very diverse student body of excellent students. And we not only prepare excellent teachers and leaders for school, but we drive our partner K-12 schools to A-rated. That's our goal, to have every student in the school unite to A-rated. She's the person to do it. I have another opening about her. I want you to wait to hear it. I'll make you nervous when I say that. Ruth Rodgers is the Vice President for Student Success. Drives retention, graduation rates. We have very diverse student body, and we are really national leaders, retention, graduation, and all that. Remarkable. She'll have some thoughts about limited norms. I operate a university with an international pandemic, so that's what we're talking about here. So then we have Ivie Obeime. And Ivie is a fourth-year medical student here. She was a student athlete. She didn't play field more into volleyball, but much like back in Birx, she was great. So she did a good job in college. And we're in a very facility where Mercy Obeime, her mother, who's a physician, gave the commencement address and received an honorary doctorate. So we're going to have 2 doctors for your family. 3, it seems like. Right here from Marian University, wherever I left that. I'm not so sure. But anyway, it'll be an honor. She's been the vice president of her medical school the past all 4 years. When COVID-19 hit, she volunteers for the Marian County health program and has been doing great work. She's going to bring some of that research here. We'll get her comments in a minute. Let's see another excellent Marian student. Now, Erin's on a little bit the other end. She's completed her first year here at Marian. She's a biology major. She won the national championship in the pentathlon. She actually qualified for the national track championship in 4 events or 5? 5. She's not a bad athlete. She was also on our soccer team that competed in the national championship. And after all that, she only has a 4.0 average in career med. So, I don't know. We're going to work with her, though, and help her improve next year. I have an explanation for her brilliance. Her dad's Marian grad, and that changes your genetic makeup, and your children end up that way, too. So it's a multi-generation benefit to come to Marian. I think I've introduced my colleagues, and I think I'll start with Dr. Turner. And I'd just like to share with our friends and the audience and the press, from the faculty perspective, how do you operate a university under a pandemic?
Sure. Thank you, President Elsener, and welcome Vice President Pence, Governor Holcomb, Secretary DeVos, and Dr. Birx. Marian is committed to on-campus teaching and learning. We believe this is the way the majority of our students learn best. Moreover, we desire to provide them with the Marian experience, as expressed so clearly by our mission and Catholic Franciscan values. As such, our faculty's preparation to safely reopen includes teaching courses as much as possible on campus, using appropriate social distancing, employing PPE in all of our classrooms, cleaning classrooms before and after each class, and requiring daily self-evaluation protocol. Should conditions worsen, faculty has spent an extraordinary amount of time developing an online version of each on-campus course. So if we experience a spike in the virus, a faculty member can quickly switch the course online. This online version will also be vital if an individual student gets sick and needs to isolate. The student will be able to keep up with the coursework during that period. If I might, I would like to express my most profound appreciation to our faculty and staff for their relentless commitment to our mission and vision so that we might do all in our power to reopen safely.
And here's Will. A fact about Dr. Turner was Ivie's principal in high school. So there's a lot of explanation of her success. That's great. Ruth Rodgers, would you share with our colleagues a little bit about how we plan to open safely and have all the students in dorms and living and learning here together?
Thank you, President Elsener and esteemed guests. The balance between the desire to be back on campus and have a successful ongoing education and the health of our whole community are our focus. And so for several months, we've been in ongoing conversation with Dr. Betsy from the Governor's Task Force on the State Department of Health. She's connected us with all our colleagues at the Marian County Health Department as well, so that we can be sure that we are paying close attention to the significant issues that are going on in the state and in the community, and that we are prepared. And so we have had leaders across campus meeting daily and weekly and doing significant work, as Dr. Turner mentioned. So we'll have our students doing a daily self-check. They're doing that on the paper check currently. We have an app that is currently also our emergency response app that will allow us to have protocols for isolation and quarantine if needed, to be sure that should someone be in contact with the virus, that we are mitigating that as quickly and well as possible. Bathrooms and residence hall rooms are our biggest challenge, I think, on all of our college campuses. And so we have a little bit fewer students who will be joining us on campus so that we don't have tripling and people on top of each other as we have been a typical year. And we will do significantly more disinfecting of our restrooms. On campus at all times, everyone will be wearing a mask in all public indoor spaces and outdoor spaces when they can't be socially distant, and even sometimes when they can be socially distant. We're asking everybody to do what makes the most sense for the whole community, thinking of the other. And so when we talk to our students, we look to our values, dignity, individual, and responsible stewardship, and just say, for everyone, we ask everyone to think about where you're going and what you're doing. Some of the things that have been mentioned by our guests today about not going to places where they would potentially spread the virus. Our dining facilities last spring moved quickly and had great plans for plating and takeout and remove furniture for some classrooms and other spaces on campus so we can be socially distanced, added barriers throughout campus where they're necessary, significantly prepared ourselves with the appropriate PPE. Students will all be given, I think we have a sample here somewhere, a welcome kit with masks and hand sanitizer and such, faculty and staff as well. And we're asking our student organizations to do whatever they are able to do outdoors and to think through the numbers of people and the current guidance, and we'll be continuing to provide that guidance as this fluid situation changes. And we'll continue to do a number of things virtually because we realized that we could do some great services virtually in addition to things that we're doing in person. I think I was supposed to stop there if they don't continue.
You did a great job. Thank you very much.
President, it's very interesting to me. These are great insights. I was just at the University of South Carolina, which is also in the urban setting, Marian University. If I'm hearing you, Ruth and Turner, there's an appreciation for the fact that you also want to protect the broader community. For the sake of the students first and the faculty first. And really just want to commend you for that focus. And these, as I said, we've seen how the university is taking that approach. Just not affirming that.
There is a big element to be a leader in the community. What's contributes to the common good?
Well, it's an aspect of the present rising cases across the Sun Belt has been in most states, roughly half of those that have tested positive are young people under the age of 30. Most of them are asymptomatic, don't even know that they have it, but they still have the capacity to expose others. And so having protocols in place, reminding students here on campus that not, to be sensitive about not only those who will be vulnerable here on campus, practicing those mitigation efforts, but also the broader community. Because I don't know any young person in my family or any family in America that would want to inadvertently expose someone to the coronavirus. And that person could be susceptible to a very serious health outcome. So I hear that responsibility coming through loud, clear, President Elsener, and I just want to commend it.
Thank you. Ivie, share with the group what it's like to be a medical student here at Marian University and out in clinicals during the pandemic.
Yes, thank you, President Elsener. Thank you. Overall, the medical profession is facing challenges, and we are being forced to adapt and be flexible so that healthcare professionals can continue to care for their patients. We as students have the opportunity to learn about a pandemic, something that will only happen, hopefully, once in a lifetime. And we are now, as students, getting a glimpse into how COVID-19 will impact the profession for the rest of our lives. As you may or may not know, first and second year moved to virtual classrooms, except for 2 classes where they receive vacations and those kind of things, and they're limited to the same partner for the entire semester with the proper PPE on. One of those things we're missing the camaraderie, the student groups, the study groups, and the chance to interact with our classmates. Those things, however, are not about making friends, because in our society, practicing medicine is done in a team-based approach. And learning how to approach problems as a team at this stage of our careers is extremely important. Third and fourth year, myself, I was finishing my 3rd year back in March, and we were missing the opportunity to learn about specialties that we may or may not know existed for us. We took online format, which thankfully went very smoothly. You're missing the opportunity to experience things you may never experience ever again. During our 4th year, we typically travel throughout the country to seek out residency programs and opportunities that we to look for where we want to be in our residency, which is anywhere from 3 to 7 years after you graduate medical school. I'm currently working with a very well-known dermatologist in Indianapolis, and he has the slogan, we all have this know the slogan, no shoes, no shirt, no service. His new slogan is no shoes, no shirt, no mask, no service. And thank you to Governor Holcomb. It's great to see that we have universal mask mandates, and that's one less thing that we have to worry about telling our patients before they come in. There's so many things that have been made in the clinic, including getting their temperature taken before, asking the patient before they come in about symptoms. The waiting room at this office is made for 60 people. There's currently only 14 chairs in the office, and the waiting room is now outside in the park. The entire staff uses universal masking, frequent hand washing, and social distance. Is this slowing down business? Of course, but at the end of the day, as a medical professional, or soon-to-be medical professional, I believe in science, sticking to those big 3 of universal masking, hand washing, and social distancing are 3 ways in the CDC that we can protect ourselves, so we can protect our patients. And at the end of the day, that's our duty as healthcare providers, is to protect ourselves so that we can protect our patients. And if I may, I would like to thank Dean Wright and the medical school and our entire team. They have provided us with additional PPE that we can take with us on rotation if the hospital may or may not have some. Have it in the car with you at all times. So navigating the turn cars is not easy, and so I'm very thankful for our leadership here.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce the Birx, the best athletic director in America. We have 800 student athletes on our campus. Very large program, and we win. I always tease Steve, I used to pray we'd win, and I pray for our opponents, because we're pretty good. So, Mr. Downey, tell them about our program and how we're moving forward here with our athletes.
Yes, we are. Dr. Birx, I'd like to say to you, I like that word impressed. You love playing with my college basketball. That's all I preach. But again, we're excited, and thank you for bringing this conference here, Mr. Vice President and Governor. This is really great, and I appreciate that, as does everyone else here. But, that's a big concern. We're planning on playing sports this fall, and we put together, I should say, Ms. Deborah, our top administrator here, has put together a really good program for the return of athletics in the school itself. We're following her program to the T. Athletes tend to be, I think they're invincible and they can play, and we're going to do exactly what she says from day one when we get here. We've had a lot of kids around during the summer, but we've limited room, the weight room, and the training room. And my hope, what worries me the most is once everyone gets here, we have 26 sports in addition, is that those 800 athletes will follow, that they're going to have patience. They're going to have to do the things. We're going to take temperatures every day. And we're going to encourage them to wash their hands. They're going to have to wear masks, face masks, and practice social distancing. And we're going to try to be and approach it this way, because all our teams, we're going to have good teams. And we don't want anyone to be so selfish that they would just think about themselves, and that they will not go to the bars or just right now, that we will try to get through this as a team and as a program. So again, that's what keeps me up. And I think these kids at the end of the day, they know that we're concerned about them and our coaches. Our coaches have already bought into what we're trying to do. And so, I look forward to, it's going to be tough, but we're going to get through it. So, thank you.
And last but not least, Erin Olesak, as I said, she's an average athlete and student, but we're working with her. You're an undergraduate student athlete. Tell us about your experience this spring. We had to go all online. What you look for this fall, please, and then we'll do some questions and answers.
Thank you, President Elsener, and welcome to all of our esteemed guests. It's really an honor to be speaking to you today. For me in the spring, I went from winning a national championship one week, and then the next week I was packing up to go home. So obviously that was a big disappointment, but it was necessary, to stop the spread. And so coming into the fall, I'm really looking forward to coming back to campus and being in an environment where I can grow mentally and socially and also in my sport as well. And I really think that the college experience fosters development of future leaders through individual growth. And we're able to interact with our peers here in a way that can't be replicated through e-learning. And this will teach us skills that we can use going into our chosen fields in the future. In terms of athletics, I'm excited to be back. I grew up around competition. It's kind of weird being home and running alone. And I think that I'm a good student because of my dedication to athletics. In competition, you learn skills such as discipline, perseverance, and leadership. And these skills help us in the classroom, and they also will help us in our future, I believe. In the fall and in the spring, I had the opportunity to compete nationally, and I think that those experiences I'll be able to take into the future and hopefully pursue a really highly competitive field in the medical field. That's really all I can say because I can only really speak from my experience. But I have to say to all of you, don't forget us. Don't forget your future leaders. Thank you.
Mr. Vice President, Governor, Secretary DeVos, Ambassador Birx, they're open for more questions, comments, share ideas. We're pleased to be here with you, and it's a great honor. It's such a good thing. When we started the medical school, by the way, it was Governor Pence, and you were so supportive and helped us with the Indiana Scholarship for the key primary docs. And I'll never forget leaving your office with the encouragement you gave me. That's a big boost. Speaking of leadership, you can make a difference. And you made a big difference for us. Any questions?
Well, thank you, President. I'll let the governor know what's the word. I just want to thank this panel for the great insights. Dr. Turner, Ms. Rodgers, your great leadership here. You put it in safety of students. It was really inspiring, and I'm confident that it's inspiring other campuses around the state and around the country. Because Marian University made a decision early. Find a way to move forward safely and responsibly. And our commitment is that we're going to pledge to work with you. We'll be meeting later today with Dr. Birx, and however we can be supported and guidance or resources on the pledge to you. And to Steve Downing, I love hearing your determination. President Elsener did not have to tell me that Marian University knows how to win. I keep track. It's some great athletic tradition here, and Steve, you provide tremendous leadership as a director of athletics. Thanks for the way you spoke about calling on the student athletes to take responsibility for operating safely. I have to tell you, seeing some baseball play last night, it's exciting for me to hear plans about college sports coming back. Because it was such a big part of our national life, our women's life at the university. Let me say, with all due respect to all the others, to Erin and Ivie, I'm probably most impressed with your comments. And congratulations on your great success, past, present, and future. But thanks also for the insight. My big takeaway today is just hearing from these extraordinary students about how important it is to be together with your peers on campus. And thought you expressed that very well, Ivie, when you said it's not just about being among your friends, but as you prepare to practice medicine as a team. And so being able to be on campus, to be with other students, to be in whatever the setting is, whether it's the classroom or the hospital, that's an essential part of learning. And I'm going to carry that back as one more argument for how important it is that we get our students back on campuses in colleges and universities of America. And Erin, your comments about being among friends and how that challenges you to grow, whether it's running with others, that apparently they have a hard time keeping up with you, but also it's the way that athletics and a competitive environment character you learn in a place like America makes it possible for you to be more successful academically. I think it's the reason why, as I said earlier, the National Education Association essentially said distance learning cannot take the place of in-person learning. The American Academy of Pediatricians said that all considerations about education going forward should begin with the objective of restoring in-person learning. I think President Elsener, I think we heard Erin and Ivie, two great examples and two great voices about just what our students get by being together, being in an environment. I love that old proverb, iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. And so I really want to thank you for bringing those insights. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the governor with a word of appreciation down in Holcomb. I will tell you, I want to join the Secretary of Education and Dr. Birx and just saying thank you for your leadership during a challenging time in the life of our state. This is home for the Pences, and to know that there was such a steady, effective, and compassionate leadership in the governor's office at such a time as this is a great source of confidence for me, and I know for people all across the state. So Governor Holcomb, thank you again for your leadership and this event today.
Thank you for being here, all of you being here, included with, we've talked a lot about team today and teamwork. We've got Senator Rodgers, and I see State Representative Bob Manning out there. So we've had a dream team on the court. My team is on the court, as Coach Dale is famously quoted the saying, but it really does come into play, especially during times of challenge. And I would want you to ask for 14-4 at a time like this. And it requires us all to learn, right? It requires us all to bring what our talents are, our intention, to bear. And that is how we will get through this all together. And it means being disciplined. It means we can persevere. We will persevere. This too will pass. But we've got to be mindful of what we do to contribute to that success. And obviously, in these challenging times, characters are leading. And I could not be prouder of you today, more so than any other time in my life, just because I see so many students and faculty members and doctors and nurses and assistants and businesses that are changing their lines on their factory floors to pitch in and help. And not for revenue's sake, but for the community's sake. And that's what really gets at community and our responsibilities. And so thank you for bringing not just the attention, but the help that underscores how we will get through this sooner rather than later. Thank you, President.
Thank you, President. Thank you.